Hi, I'm Judy Shintani from Foothill College, and today we're going to be talking about an American painter known as Whistler. And after you see some of his work, I'm sure many of you will know who he is. We're going to go through some slides about James Abbott McNeill Whistler, an American painter. Here's a self-portrait of him. Here's his most famous painting that maybe many of you have seen at one point or another. So Whistler was born July 11th, 1834 in Lowell, Massachusetts, and he died July 17th, 1903 in London, England. He was one of the most significant figures in American art and a forerunner of the post-impressionist movement. He's celebrated for his innovative painting style and eccentric personality. He represents one of the earliest shifts from traditional representational art to abstract art. I thought that was interesting. I hadn't really known about his abstract work. Now we're going to go through some videos about his work and about his life.
Portrait of his patron.
He had never painted a full-length portrait, and he wasn't really getting anywhere with it. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to please Leyland, but Whistler could always please his mother. And that's when he had the breakthrough.
Jimmy is never ill. His talent is too eager. So I was not surprised at his preparing a large canvas, late though it was. But I was surprised when the next day he said to me, "Mother, I want you to stand for me. It is what I have long desired to do, to take your portrait."
His breakthrough came with the use of color. Whistler limited the pigments on his palette to just a few.
Look at how the Japanese understand it. The same color reappearing continually like the same thread. The whole forming an harmonious pattern.
It is astonishing how much Mr. Whistler has here accomplished with two colors, aided by touches of red on the face and hands, and of yellow in the carpet, footstool, and cardboard of the drawing on the wall. The Examiner.
He disciplined himself to create this masterful work with a minimum of color. And once he saw that he could do that, he felt that he could move on. He didn't have to do these student exercises anymore.
He gave the picture a musical title, Arrangement, to emphasize the harmonious effect of color, line, and composition he was seeking. Arrangement in gray and black, portrait of the artist's mother.
It's monumental. I think everybody feels a sense of peace and repose when they look at it, and that was true from the very beginning.
The image of his mother is what he's best known for, and it's really what achieved immortality for him, even in his own lifetime.
It was exhibited everywhere. It went to Europe, it went to America. It was a very important statement for him.
In the very same year that he was working on the portrait of his mother, he discovered the nocturne form just by looking out the window at the river on foggy evenings.
The view from his window suggested a setting for the beautiful pictures Whistler wanted to paint of the modern world, the urban landscape. The new and original form was the result of his discoveries about the horizon line and color, applied in broad bands across the canvas.
He's trying to find a way to depict nature as he sees it. It's not a literal depiction of nature. The painter adds his own sense of atmosphere, his own sense of emotion, if you will. And Whistler was constantly struggling, trying to find that way.
He is determined to make beauty out of the everyday. He saw what was before him, but he then turns it into artistry.
I remember as an 11 or 12-year-old boy walking through the galleries and seeing that and just stopping and saying, ah, that's different. And that's exactly the reaction Whistler was trying to achieve, get people to say, ah, this is different. This is a different way to see the night. This is a different way to see the Thames.
He lets go of Western perspective. It allows him to make these paintings that are fundamentally decorative. Now, some people would say that was a problem with them. They were too superficial, that they didn't have any meaning, but that's what he was after.
There's no destination in the picture. He lets those elisions awaken your own imagination. If you've never been on a fog, you might have a little trouble, but most of us have. Certainly the London audience knew that.
Those ideas about liberating art from subject matter, Whistler was one of the first to do that. That's how he was seen as a precursor of abstraction.
He prefers ambiguity to information. He never, ever, I don't think, completely abandons reality. That is to say, there's no such thing as a completely abstract Whistler. That will come after him.
Unique vision, beauty, and at the same time that the nocturnes are admired in this way, there's also this anxiety that, well, but what's in them? They look so easy. What's the story? Where's the setting? Is this art?
When you were buying a Whistler, you were buying the whole package. You were buying not necessarily a particular object, but maybe you were buying into a style, an idea, a concept of art that was special, that was different.
On Picture Sundays, London's artists opened their studios to show their newly finished work. Whistler's Sundays were exclusive and included breakfast. The breakfasts were to amuse and educate, sometimes to shock, always to sell, both Whistler and his art. The Sunday breakfasts ensured that Whistler remained the talk of the town.
People came and they had rather a marvelous time eating what was, I guess, fairly exotic in London, American food, and chit-chatting about the arts and so forth. He was good at the salon. He was fun to be around, you know. He was a witty man.
Not the fish.
But it could turn sharp. You didn't know what you were going to get with Whistler, which was maybe part of the fun.
We also see the red-haired Jo Hefferman, an Irish beauty to whom the artist was romantically attached at the time. We can also see Jo in this 1862 canvas, Symphony in White No. 1. But this is a very different kind of image. Whistler had high regard for a bold development in mid-19th century English painting, the establishment of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, whose members included John Everett Millais, William Holman Hunt, and Dante Gabriel Rossetti. Whistler knew these artists well. Millais had publicly expressed his admiration for At the Piano when it was shown at London's Royal Academy in 1860. But it was Rossetti who became the most significant influence on Whistler. The two men became virtual neighbours when Whistler moved into a house of his own in London's Chelsea. The influence of Rossetti is evident in this memorable canvas.
Symphony in White No. 1 is related to the work of Pre-Raphaelite painters in a number of accounts. And there are these underlying tensions about narrative, though Whistler would have denied this, as to has something just happened, is it about to happen? These underlying sexual overtones of the purity of her dress in relation, say, to the wolfskin on which she stands, her unbound red hair in relation to the single white lily that she is holding.
One of Whistler's friends remarked that Jimmy, that's Whistler, and the Rossetti lot were thick as thieves, and their ideas sparked off one another.
Symphony in White No. 1 is now seen as one of the most significant of Whistler's early works. But as with At the Piano before it, critical reaction was mixed. It was rejected by the Paris Salon of 1863, but that was the year that so many works were turned down that the Emperor Napoleon conceived the famous Salon of the Rejected. This was the exhibition where Manet's Picnic in the Garden caused an outrage. Symphony in White was also widely condemned. But others saw the value of this haunting canvas, including the poet Charles Baudelaire, and the Paris exhibition succeeded in raising Whistler's profile as an artist. But he decided to stay in London, living near Rossetti and enjoying his affair with Joe Hefferman, who also posed for this follow-up painting, Symphony in White No. 2. Here again, we see the artist's skillful handling of the white paint. But we can also identify important new compositional elements. Completed in 1864, this canvas is one of the first Whistler paintings to reveal the influence of the Far East. At the time, fashionable London was obsessed with Oriental art. An 1862 exhibition of Japanese artifacts had been rapturously received, and wealthy people began to acquire art and objects from China and especially Japan. Whistler, like his friend Rossetti, became an avid collector of Chinese blue and white pottery, and he boasted that all the porcelain that can be seen in this 1864 canvas belonged to him personally. This picture from the same year reveals an even more striking interest in the Far East. Entitled Caprice in Silver and Gold, The Golden Screen, the canvas is full of Japanese objects surrounding a kimono-clad woman who may once again be the artist's mistress, Jo. But this is an image quite unlike the symphonies in white. Whistler's enthusiasm for the Japanese prints that we can see here now worked its way into the heart of his compositional technique.
If we look at Whistler's paintings in relation to particularly Japanese prints, we can see straight away how he adopted this method of cutting off the image in strange, rather asymmetrical designs. Sometimes the design being so powerful that it takes a while for you to understand exactly what the image depicts.
It's the way he uses space, sometimes the flattening of the picture plane. He absorbed these influences and went on to produce these marvelous paintings.
The spirit of Japanese art would stay with Whistler throughout his career, and the Oriental influence would also be apparent in paintings whose subject matter could hardly have been more Western.
This is Judy Shintani from Foothill College. Thanks for joining us today, and I'll see you next week.